Okay, 2-bed, 2-bath.
Yep.
Condo.
Langley City versus Willoughby.
Anywhere from 25, and I was talking to you before, as high as 28.
Yeah. What's matcha? Is matcha how would you explain matcha? Matcha, it is a matcha, like a cha. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live from Langley BC. I'm your host, Langley. I'm your host, Daniel, Langley resident. You got to keep that because that was good. This is That Langley Podcast, super original. I know we talk about news, business, events, and real estate. You know, we try to dabble in, but at the end of the day, it has a lot to do with Langley. So we like to throw that in there here and there. So today we have a special guest. I keep saying that, but he is a special guest because he has answers to the questions that a lot of people are asking, and that's related to living in Langley, right? So a lot of people who are moving to Langley, they can't always buy a home, so they ended up having to rent, and that's one of the most important questions when moving to Langley, if they can afford to live here. What's the rental rates here? And he knows everything about that. So today we have Joven Servas. What is it? Service?
Yep.
I've been saying Servas.
Oh,
like for
that's
some
fancy.
Reason. Servas. Joven Servas. We have Joven Service. Owner of Cervantage Property Management. So he deals with a majority of the rentals here in Langley. So he has the inside scoop to all that. So I won't get into that too much. I'll let him tell you all about that. But Joven, thanks so much for jumping on today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. It's awesome to have a different outlook on real estate on this podcast because everybody who does come on here from the real estate background is usually a realtor.
Yeah.
So from this side, it's not purchasing homes and selling homes, it's more so on the rental side, which at the end of the day is the majority of people, like what people can afford, right? Unfortunately, that's where we're at now. But rental rates, we're going to talk all about that, and also about how rental rates have been affected here in Langley and all that. So
Sure.
Joven, before we get into it though, can you kind of give people a little bit of a background about you and what you do?
Sure. Background on me, I've spent 11 years doing corporate and executive outbound sales, and recently, started doing the property management, moving over to that side, and it's been crazy. I didn't realize how busy it would be right at the start. But what I took away from my account management side was just a huge amount of customer service and being able to interact quickly between clients. And now, this is a little different. I'm more dealing with, instead of large corporations or businesses, I'm dealing with investors, first of all, with their properties. And now I'm also dealing with the end user, I guess the tenant. So in terms of how it's been lately in the rental space has just been insane. I mean, you hear stories all the time. Landlords are always, or investors are really worried about renting out their properties because they're scared of getting what they call professional tenants in their units. What a professional tenant is they'll come in. If you don't vet them properly, they'll basically just squat in your unit and cost you thousands of dollars over however long it takes to kick them out. Wow. And in that time frame, you can, they can destroy your unit by not taking care of it or straight gut it. Luckily, I haven't been able to, or I haven't seen that in my time doing this. I've been pretty fortunate to place responsible tenants for a majority of my properties and everything. There's a few that slipped through the cracks, but that's not to say that they weren't good to start off with. It's just something happened later on down the road. It's just life happens.
Yeah, it's a very controversial topic. I mean, real estate overall is, because you have people who always blame the landlords for everything, and then you have landlords who always blame the tenants as well, right? So you're in an even more, I think, controversial, confrontational business than I would say selling real estate. Like
100%.
You're literally people are pushing on both sides, just like butting heads, and you're in the middle of that. Real estate is great, but I don't think you get that friction as much. You kind of get more of like a working together, let's all figure out a solution together because every side has a representative, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I never knew about that side either until we were sitting side by side, and I was overhearing some of these phone calls that
they're crazy. They're crazy for sure.
And I mean, it depends on the area too, would you say, or would you say that's kind of like a general problem that happens everywhere?
I think it's a general problem that happens everywhere. It's really the I guess in terms of like when things go wrong, it's usually with response time. if the landlord isn't doing something quickly enough, or if the tenant thinks that the landlord should be doing something quicker than they can. But, you got to see both sides of the story, usually, in this case, whenever there's an issue. Like, for example, if a tenant has an issue with like a stove or something like that, a repairman to get out could take a day, could take 3 days. But if that tenant is super picky or needy or something like that, they could be just like going to town on you and just message you constantly, calling you constantly, trying to get something fixed, right? But I'd say it's not an area sort of deal. It's more of just a general sort of census.
Okay. And then your job, I guess, because, you always hear about different ways that people vet, and also controversial, right? A lot of people think, like, there's questions, and there obviously are questions and different, what's it called, a proof that you can ask for. You can't dig in too deep, but at the same time, like, I have these conversations all the time with people on social media, and it's like, you got to see it from the from the owner's side. Like, they spent all of this money, hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy this place. Sometimes that was the down payment.
Yeah.
And now they want to make sure that the person they're giving this access to who's living in that home is, overqualified. And I get it. People need to have a place to live. You can't discriminate all the time. So that's where, there's only so much you can ask. But because in this podcast, I want to talk about Langley, but I also want to talk about some of the things that from both sides. And I know sometimes, a lot of the time, people don't discuss what the rights of a tenant are, but also the rights of a landlord, right? So you kind of get to see the separation of, like, okay, this is where the line gets crossed by a landlord, this is where the line gets crossed by a tenant, right? And we can. It's a big job for one episode to cover everything, but at the same time, it's important. So I want to talk about that, but so. In relation to the area, like, where right now are you dealing with some of where right now are you looking for? Where right now are you looking? Not looking. What the hell is going on? Where right now are you managing?
Okay.
These units the most of, like, just so we can get like direct information about that area.
So most of the properties I manage are within like the Langley and Surrey area, just because it's close proximity to my office, and I'm able to get there in a pretty quick time frame, usually within 20 to 30 minutes, if there's ever an issue, or if I need to drop by there to take a look at something. But I've gone as far as Hope. Wow. I don't know if I'd do that again. And I do properties, in like New West, Burnaby, downtown Vancouver, here and there. But majority of my properties are here in Langley and Surrey.
What differentiates Langley from those other? Is it, again, the same thing, or is it different people who are moving there, or different process?
It's. I mean, it really depends on the person. When they're moving, it's usually because of work or something related to that, or if they just want to cut down their commute, or they could just be dealing with a crappy landlord and they want out, right? In those scenarios, you want to be very careful, because is it a crappy landlord, or is it a tenant that's super picky and could be causing a lot of headaches down the road. But in terms of, like, when you're comparing Vancouver, Burnaby, New West, Surrey, Langley, like, if you're looking at rental prices, it's very different from city to city. You got to make sure you're doing your correct research, and even researching right down to the neighborhood that you're renting in, because for example, Langley, a condo in Willoughby isn't going to be the same price, or it'll be close, but it could be something completely different if there's a condo in, like, Brookswood or something like that you're trying to rent out. So Brookswood's a little bit further out, a little bit further from the highway, depending on where you are for location, and then there's amenities and stuff like that involved too.
So what would the price comparison to, like, Langley City and Willoughby be for? Because that's a good range. You have something that's central, right, close to amenities, but it's in a neighborhood that isn't super family friendly, right, and Langley City, and older homes. Then you got Willoughby, where it's like more family, family friendly. There's a little bit more parks, also a lot of traffic, so that kind of plays a factor, but also closer to the highway. So, like, where differentiating between Langley City and Willoughby, what are the price ranges in all the categories? Because I want to break all these down for people.
Okay, all the categories.
Yeah, let's go starting from one bed, one bath condo.
Okay, like a 1 bed, 1 bath condo is going roughly for around, in Langley, around, I'd say, 17 to 2,000. Some are pushing 21, 22. Those are usually your brand new units, and sometimes they'll come with like a den, or they'll have like insane amenities or something like that.
Like, give me an example of like the high range and the low range. Like, where and would you find that?
So Langley City, you'd probably find, depending on the age of the unit, there's older condos available there. You'll find that around, like, if it's close to transit, you'll be around the 1900 mark. If it's not close to transit, you'll be around the 1700 mark, depending on amenities. If there's a gym, extra parking stalls, huge. Right. Storage. Everyone's always looking for storage. Or if it's pet friendly. If it's pet friendly, that can also increase the price for rental units, just because there's not a huge amount of homes available for people who have pets, which kind of sucks, but it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it could range 17 to 19 even in Langley City, you're saying, and even just to give listeners an idea on the super low end, because I remember 1-bedroom condo, those rental buildings. I had a friend who was living in there like 4 years ago now, I think. Yeah. It was $1,600 for a 1-bed in the brand new rental buildings. Do you know what those rates are in those buildings, by the way? Because they're not the lowest. Yeah. They're not cheap rental buildings.
No, but they're usually a little better. Now, the issue with those buildings is because it's run by they're all run by one management company or something like that. Yeah. The response time from them can, depending on who you're dealing with. Yeah. Now it depends on who you're dealing with, because it's specifically to that. It can take forever to get anything done. Like if you have an issue with your unit, your fridge or something like that, you'd message them and you won't hear back for like a week. There's really nothing you can do about it, right? Because it's like dealing with strata. You just message them, and it depends on who you're dealing with. They're either on the ball or they're not, and you may have to just keep on hassling them in order to get something done.
Okay, right? Fair enough. And then, so the higher price range, you said something with amenities. So I'm thinking like a Union Park.
Yeah, Union that place Park is killer. Whenever I get a unit in Union Park, that thing goes usually within a week. Wow, it's insane.
So Union Park Polygon built. Yeah. So they have pool, jacuzzi.
Yeah, it's like the way I describe it's like a little mini resort in the city, right? It's got everything. Yeah, right? It's got a pool, jacuzzi, indoor gymnasium.
The basketball court.
The basketball court, which they have volleyball nets for, hockey nets for, and everything like that. Yeah. So you can just book it off. They've got a gym, like a weight gym. A games room with an Xbox in it, ready to use, with some games. But you can bring in your own games, obviously. Pool table, foosball table. So
is that a one bed, one bath in Union Park, top of the line? Yeah, 2,200, you'd think, or 21?
I'd say like
that 21, one with a den. You said 22.
Yeah, it'd be like 2,000, 2,100, depending on
with the parking, with the
exactly
with the storage, maybe,
and how the unit has been taken care of.
Right. Okay. How much would you say that plays a factor? Like, let's say it's same unit in a higher end Union Park, something that's been pristinely taken care of. That's on the higher end, 22. Yeah. Versus something that the floor's lifting, there's scuffs on the walls. Yeah. Because it's a new unit, so that's the worst that it could really be. Like there was a spill. I mean, even then, those have vinyl, right? So they're not even bad flooring. But let's say there's chips all over the floor.
Who was in it, right? Because renters or tenants can be. They can be pretty dirty, Sometimes they just don't really care because it's not their stuff, right? So they'll just, wear their shoes inside, and it can, or just not really care about the walls or anything like that.
Would that affect the price though? How much do you think? Like
a couple hundred. Okay. If the house or the condo isn't rent ready, first of all, it's going to take forever to rent out your unit, just because
someone will want it.
Yeah, when you come in to see a place, just like buying anything like a car or clothes, you don't want there to be any deficiencies or any issues with it. You want it to be clean, kind of ready to go, for your move, without any damages that you have to worry about or anything like that. Also, when you're moving out and you're trying to re-rent the place, you want the place back in the same condition, right? So if a place has been well maintained, typically that person, if you vet correctly and carefully, and done, haven't rushed it, you should have someone that will take care of the home and bring it back to you in that same condition, with some minor wear and tear, because that just happens, right?
Rather than leaving it in bad condition, they come in, they're like, whatever, they don't care, so I'm going to leave it.
If someone sees
why should I pay extra to clean it when it wasn't clean?
Or they'll make it worse, right? They'll be like, there's no pride in keeping like a dirty, scuffed up unit. Right. They don't want to make they don't want to make improvements themselves, and I wouldn't, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so let's rattle some off here, because those are all really key facts to take into account, right? There's a high and a low because of different factors, different areas.
Talking to you before, it's size 28. Yeah. Now the higher range is usually a brand new building, and because of the rising interest rates, that's where we're kind of seeing that the landlords try to recoup some of their costs by increasing the rent. That's why I was seeing them as high as $2,800 for some units. Now,
but were they renting at that?
Having said that, I saw a couple rent out at that price, but since then they've dipped now. So they've gone back to kind of, I'd say, more normal levels around the 26 mark in Langley City for that particular brand new building. But if we bring it back to like Willoughby at Union Park, those are renting for around $2,800 for a 2-bed because of the amenities, right? People want to live in there because the neighborhood's great. I mean, the traffic there kind of sucks.
Hopefully it gets better. But
But the schools in there are awesome. Low crime rate, and it's just a lot more to do in the close vicinity. Like you don't have to drive anywhere. You could just walk around to a park. Lots of close shops nearby, like coffee shops and everything like that, grocery stores. So the rent in in that area, specifically that building, is usually pretty high.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And we were talking about 3-bedroom. No, we said 2-bed, 2-bath condo, and then we did a video 2-bed, 2-bath townhouse. Yeah. And 2-bed, 2-bath townhouse was a little bit more, right?
Yeah. So they're going anywhere right now from $2,800 to $3,100 for a 2-bed, 2-bath townhouse. Of course, depending on the age again and condition of the home. But they're around that rental price. 3-bed. Say
3-bed, 2-bath condo.
3-bed, 2-bath condo. It's actually renting probably around the same price as a 2-bed, 2-bath townhouse because you have that shared space. People are above you and below you, so they charge.
I mean, it makes sense that your townhouse would rent more than a.
Yeah, you get more space.
You get your own garage. Yeah, you get your own entrance.
Yeah. A 3-bed, 3-bath townhouse that's going anywhere from $3,000 to $3,500.
$3,000, $3,500 for 3-bed, 2-bath, and then 3-bed, 3-bath townhouse. How much does that be?
So that would be like around like the 30. So a 3-bed, 3-bath townhouse.
2.5, yeah.
Yeah, 2.5. It's just, so I kind of bundled that in with the 3-bed, 2-bath townhomes.
Okay, because it's not a huge difference for that extra bathroom?
Well, I mean, the powder room is nice for guests.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on where that bathroom is located.
Right, because sometimes they're below,
Yeah, sometimes below, they're up top, right? So the person has to, like if you have guests over, they have to go up top. Now, that will play a factor with tenants as well because, they're going to be living in this space. They want it functional for their lifestyle and whatnot. But yeah, I'd say it's like a 3-bed, 2-bath townhouse. You're looking around 33 to 35. Some depending on where it's located. Like I have one in Maple Ridge right now that's going for around the 3,000 mark, just because it's a little slower paced in there.
Maple Ridge, Interesting. between like a 3-bed, 2-bath and a 3-bed, 3-bath townhouse, you have probably a gap of how much would you say? $200-$300, probably roughly. Yeah. Okay, and the price range on that. Right, because I'm trying to make it make sense for like an investor. So the price range on that for like if you're buying something is probably going to be $50,000 to $75,000 more if you go for the 3-bed, 3-bath versus if you do the 2-bath. Yeah. Is that worth it? I'm not a mortgage broker, but I'm sure that for $75,000 more, for only $300 difference.
Yeah, you're gonna have to run the numbers.
Yeah, right. I don't think it does. I think you're better off getting that 2-bath one as an investment because you're gonna get people who are not gonna pay as much for that extra bathroom, especially if they're renting there. Right, they're gonna be there for a long time, but they might not see that as like their forever home, so they don't care about that extra bathroom. So you're paying that much to buy it, but maybe it's not worth it for the renter.
Yeah. For sure.
And then we were comparing also townhouse to now the next scale. Obviously, there's 4-bed. Townhomes, but I mean at that point, 4-bed townhomes, like what's the difference between a 4-bed townhome and then a 3-bed? Because usually you rent the top of a house, right? Yeah. Usually those houses are like 3 bedrooms upstairs, right? And then they have the 1 or 2 basement suite, but that's separate. So there's the 3 bedrooms upstairs, full house or full top of the house. You get your own parking, your own garage usually. So that's 2 parking, storage in there. How would that compare to a 4-bed townhouse? Because 4-beds also have the parking, storage, but they don't have the yard space, right? So what's the difference there?
The difference there is the shared space. So a 4-bed townhouse is actually easier to rent out because you're not dealing with a downstairs tenant. I mean, you got neighbors to the side of you, but they're not sharing really any space with you. They're in their own unit, right?
Right.
So you don't have to be mindful. You do have to be mindful of the walls and stuff like that, noise and everything. But like in terms of walking around or yard space or anything like that.
Yeah, then you have people walking through each other's living spaces, basically.
Yeah,
having a barbecue, and then the basement tenant is coming through. Like,
yeah, and then there's conflicts that, like, if you don't if for some reason the upstairs don't gel with the downstairs people, then you're having to deal with that, right? But typically a townhouse is easier to rent out than a detached. But if you have a detached single family home with no shared space, then those will get picked up quickly as well, right? Depending on what you're asking for rent.
Okay, so get rid of the basement suite. Let's say it's a house, no basement suite. Usually find those either in Brookswood. There's some in Willoughby, but the majority are in Walnut Grove, I think, because Walnut Grove doesn't have basements a lot of the time. So house in Walnut Grove, 3-bed, full house, separate yard, versus 4-bed, townhouse. What's the price range?
So the price range is actually pretty big for like a detached home, single family. I've seen prices range anywhere from $35,000 to $4,000.
Wow.
Depending on how many bedrooms, they can go as high as like $4,500 if it has like 5 bedrooms or something like that, or 6 bedrooms. So the price just keeps on increasing.
So it's kind of like a rancher style.
Yeah. It depends on your space for backyard and everything like that. But Walnut Grove is a really sought after area because it's really family orientated. People like the schools there. It's just kind of more secluded than like the city, right? But a townhouse, you're kind of capped around like the 3,500 mark, 35, 37.
That's probably like the most you're going to spend on a townhouse.
Yeah,
because the 4-bed's pretty much the biggest.
Yeah, like we've tried.
I've seen bigger, but yeah.
Like with my clients, I tried, like I give them the recommendations of what homes are renting for in the area, but I still give them the option to set their price. So I say this is what's going for, but what were you thinking, right? So we'll try whatever rental price they like. If most of the time they'll just go with my recommendation, but sometimes you do have clients, or we do get clients that they're looking for more because their mortgage payments are higher or whatnot, and there's something else that they're looking at, and they just need a little higher to fit their need. What I've noticed is that when I take a look at the metrics, the numbers, the amount of views we're getting, the amount of messages coming through, the amount of actual appointments being booked, and everything like that. At that higher mark for the 4-bedroom townhouses, the response has been pretty minimal if it's like at the really high end. Because, I mean...
Like, what's a really high end price range? Like over 37 or...
Yeah, like a 37 mark.
Okay.
Or like 35 is even actually pretty tough for it. Like, it'll take some time to find the right person.
And that kind of segues too into a question that maybe you, at that point in that conversation with the client, you probably bring this up, where it's like, we might get somebody who'll pay that. But you get to that, why are they willing to pay that? Yeah. There's obviously a reason. They obviously don't have the qualifications to be in a more competitive range, right? Because they're getting, overlooked compared to more qualified. But maybe they have 2 dogs. Maybe they have, they're not going to tell you about it because they already know how to, like you said, they're professional tenants, right? Yeah. So they might be the ones who know how to pull the strings. They'll pay more, but for how long will they pay more? Or if they do pay more, what are they doing and why are they doing it that way, right? Yeah. So is that something that you have that conversation with your people about?
Yeah, 100%. But it could also go both ways, right? Like you can set some landlords have an idea where if you set your rental price high, it'll weed out all the people who can't afford it, right? But like you said, how long can they pay that rent for? And will you continue to keep that place in pristine condition? And will they do that for you, right, at that rental price? Now, will they also be more needy because they're paying so much more, right? But also the other argument is if you set it at a low point, you'll get a lot more people coming through, and some of those people might have a checkered past as well, who maybe wouldn't have even tried going for the higher price because they're like, why even bother, They're going to see my background and just like they're just going to cross me off anyway. But they'll do this. They'll be like, hey, this is at a lower price range. Might have a shot. Let's do it, right?
Yeah, it's a balancing act at the end of the day. You can't just think of a price that you want to get and just ask for it. You could, obviously, in theory, but it ends up biting you in the butt because if they lose their job or
Yeah.
or even
Life happens,
yeah,
right?
even if they don't lose their job, they're more needy, and then they're asking for every single little thing that somebody who's not paying that much might not care for. They're like, you know what? We're all fair, we're all in agreement, and we don't want to just overstep any boundaries at that point.
That's why doing your like taking the most time in your vetting your applicants is the most crucial part, I'd say, with rentals, when dealing with rentals. Taking the time and not rushing that specific aspect can make you or break you. Because if you're rushing, you can potentially put someone in there that's not really good, right? That will pay maybe the first 3 months, and then all of a sudden now you're out 6 months of rent later on down the road.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Imagine 6 months, 6 months of non-payment of rent, and you're paying their mortgage. You're paying your mortgage, basically, and they're living there for free. The reason why it's that long is because you have to deal with the RTB, right, in order to evict them properly. So, I mean, depending on, sorry, where were we?
No, it's you're dealing with that with the RTB, and it's funny because like that's where I wanted to go, because dealing with the Residential Tenancy Board.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why I thought R was for something else. But RTB, right? Residential Tenancy Board. Dealing with them, right? This is where once you bring them into the equation, obviously now, like people think when you hear that it's the tenant, hey, the landlord has been treated me, unjust, so I'm going to go to the RTB, and now the deal, like everything's being sorted out by them. Or now it's also vice versa, though, where the landlord has to get rid of someone. They can't just evict them. They have to go through a process as well. So what does that look like on both sides? Okay, so let's start with the tenant, right? Why would a tenant go to the RTB? Like, what do they have to watch out for? I know sometimes you probably don't want to talk about this because it's, I don't know, at the end of the day, some people like to overstep their boundaries, right? So if they take anything, they're just gonna be like, oh, well, he said that, right?
Yeah.
So keep in mind, listening to this, he, is a property manager. Definitely check the regulations on the RTB, but what tenant wise, when should they look at that as like an option? What are their restrictions as a tenant? What are the restrictions as a landlord that a tenant should watch out for?
Yeah. So what, it's just respect to privacy is what I've seen the most. So dropping by unannounced. Sometimes I've dealt with landlords who just, and they don't know any better because they either never rented units out before.
Like the owners just show up.
Yeah, basically, right? And then they're just like, ended up like peering through windows or something like that. And then I get a call like, hey, some guy's like looking through my windows and everything like that. Or they'll call the police or something, and then I find out it's the owner, so I have to come smooth that whole situation out and explain, we can't do that. We can't go just drop by there unannounced. We need to give at least 24-hour notice before we do any inspections or drop by. Now, usually, depending on the tenant, if you've got a good relationship with your tenant, if you say, hey, can I just drop by and take a look at the unit? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yeah, no problem, right? I'm home around this time, or I'm home right now. Feel free to come by. But as a tenant, so dropping by unannounced.
And how often could they potentially ask for that? Obviously, you don't want to bother them too much if you're the owner.
So you're able to do it every 30 days.
Oh, wow, okay, so monthly
believe.
almost.
Yeah. But, I mean, now that can be a nuisance,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
So you don't want to be dropping by every 30 days. Usually it's like, people set restrictions or something like that, or you let them know beforehand. But, if it's a problem tenant, though, then you want to be dropping by more frequently, right? If they're not paying rent or something like that. Or if say there was an issue with like a hoarder or something, you came in, you inspected the unit, and you're like, okay, I'm going to be back in 30 days to check again, right? If it's still the same, then you're like back in another 30 days where you can start setting the process for evictions or something. But typically the tenant would just they don't want to contact the RTB. First they're going to want to take a look at the RTB website. It's actually really user friendly. You could probably search up whatever you're looking for right from there, or you can call the RTB directly, and they can answer any questions that they have if they have an issue with their current rental.
And what about evictions? Because that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
That's the number one post I see on social media. It's like, I'm getting kicked out. Can they kick me out? They haven't given me notice. So
Yep. Yeah, so that can all be looked up at the RTB website as well. It's pretty straightforward. But that is the main probably issue with all landlords and tenants is evictions. Being evicted unjustly or unfairly. For example, a lot of landlords do, if like the rent is, say you have a tenant that has rented out your unit for the last 10 years, that means the rent is probably super, super low because the allowable rent increase from the RTB is usually like 1.5, 1.2, or this year's 2.2% of the rental income for the month increase, right? So if what I've seen landlords do, or what I've heard landlords do, is they'll do what they call an eviction, 2-month notice for eviction for landlord use, but then they'll go back and they'll just re-rent the unit for, market value or something.
Yeah,
like
so that's
that,
a
right?
huge red flag there.
Yeah. So with tenants, what they do is they, if they feel like they're being unjustly evicted, they'll contact the RTB and probably file a dispute with the notice. Because with each eviction notice, you can file a dispute. I think it costs like $100 to file the dispute, but then now it basically pauses that eviction. And so you had to work something out, like you negotiate, or you go through the actual process of going to a hearing, talking to an arbitrator, things like that.
Yeah.
But on the landlord side of things, like, it's also like if it's legitimate and you're using it for landlord use, like immediate family, you could have a tenant that disputes the notice, and now you're kind of just stuck.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah. Well, how do you go and prove that though?
Exactly.
I guess it can't even be proven.
No, it's tough because like when you're, it's basically up to the RTB at that point. You got to make your case.
You got to be like, hey, this is my family.
Yeah.
Bring them over.
Yeah. Show the proof
Yeah.
Of whatever you can bring.
Yeah.
Right, and then the RTB kind of makes the decision.
And that
from there.
takes how long? You think like a month or two, probably?
No, it's just so much longer.
Really?
It depends on what how backlogged the RTB is, but and the like what the specific situation is. Like if it's like urgent, then they'll look at it sooner. But if it's just like a dispute over like a 2-month notice sort of deal, that can take up to 6-8 months. Depending on where they're at in where the RTB is at in terms of the case log right now. But it can be long, like super long.
Oh, crazy. I have a scenario for you. This week, I had this conversation with somebody who's thinking about buying now because they're getting kicked out. But so the scenario is they're renting upstairs. They've been renting up there for a long time. The basement suite is being rented. The basement suite is unauthorized.
Yep.
Right. So it's actually, I guess there's a way where you could do that legally if you're paying taxes on it, but apparently they're not. Okay. So I don't know how this person knows though that they're not paying tax on. I don't know. Maybe they mentioned it. But upstairs is this person who's renting. Downstairs is this person who's renting but isn't getting claimed. Right. The person downstairs complained about the people upstairs, and now all of a sudden the people upstairs are getting kicked out. They weren't giving proper notice. They were like, you got to leave in like 2 weeks through a text. Yeah. Right. People upstairs who I've talked to, they said they talked to the RTB. They told the owner, okay, we've sent this to the RTB. Like, you can't kick us out because you need to explain your case. Like, why are we getting kicked out? We haven't gotten any warnings. We actually complained about the people downstairs to you, and now you've talked to them and they complained about us. Yeah. Right. So now it's a back and forth thing. What is actually who's actually valid for their complaint? And then the owners apparently went online and they actually went and they found another tenant to move in February 1st, right? So they already they're like, you need to leave because we have another tenant coming in already. It's like, how do they haven't even left yet. They're like, you need to leave in 2 weeks. You have no options. Okay, then they're like, we're not leaving. We talked to the RTB and they're like, okay, well, you have to leave because we already rented it to somebody else, right? So like, craziness, but obviously, who would you say is in the right here? You can't give a text notice like that.
Yeah, so going by the book, like we're going by the RTB, it's the tenants in the right. They got a message by text, which isn't the proper way to serve notice. The best way to serve notice, if the tenant hasn't filled out what they call an RTB 51, which is a proof of service document that the RTB has. So all these documents can be found within the RTB website for everything, like increase in rent, eviction notices.
That has to be signed, all of it?
Yeah.
Or at least emailed and like time-stamped? Or?
Yeah, the form has to be signed by both parties and everything like that in order to move forward. So in this particular scenario, it would be the RTB 51. If they haven't filled out that form and signed it, or if they have, then they can serve notice by email, and then just do it that way, quick and easy. But if they haven't, best way to do it is by registered mail, because there's a tracking number through Canada Post. So it shows that it's been delivered and received. And it doesn't matter if it's actually been delivered or received or not. As long as it's done through registered mail and it shows that it went to their inbox, and if they don't pick it up, whatever, no big deal. It's not your problem, it's the tenant's problem, right? So that's the way to serve proper notice. Some people will use like the proof of service form, but I've had a lot of mixed reviews on that. Sometimes the RTB will use it, sometimes they won't. So the safest way is just through registered mail. So that's the way they should have served notice first.
How long in advance? Even let's say I think we were a month to month, right? Obviously.
Well, you can serve notice whenever, and it's deemed received, I believe, for registered mail after 5 days.
But how long in advance? 3 months? 2 months?
Advance for what?
In advance for the eviction.
Oh, for that particular, it depends on what they're evicting for. So if they're evicting for unpaid rent, then it'd be 10-day notice. If they're evicting for, really there's only 2 ways to evict, or 3 ways, I guess. So unpaid rent, if they haven't abided by the terms of the year agreement, or for landlord use.
So I guess in this case, if there was a complaint from downstairs, it might be something about the terms, I assume, right? And then so how long is that?
Also 2 month notice.
2 months. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's a decent
I believe
amount.
2 months
10
notice.
days for 10 days for not paying, hey?
Yeah.
And then when can you do the non-paying one? Is it like
The
you
moment
give
they don't pay rent.
for the first time? Wow.
And I recommend doing it. If you're and it's not like it seems a little harsh just because it's an eviction notice, right?
Yeah.
But if you explain to your tenant like, hey, like I don't want to evict you, I do have to serve this notice just for like keeping records.
Right. That you've done it once.
Yeah, exactly. And for any ongoing issues or later on down the road. But if you still have 5 days to make the payment.
Right. Okay, you get like a window of.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can kind of work it out from there, sort of deal, right?
Okay.
But in your specific scenario, they didn't serve notice correctly, unfortunately. So the tenants have a pretty good case. Now, the other thing about that is they found a tenant. So depending on what the issue is for eviction, say if they tell the RTV they evicted for landlord use, and the tenants can prove that they found another tenant.
Yeah, because now they sent a text saying that.
Yeah.
Now they're gonna, let's say they flip it. Now
Then the
they get a
RTV
year of rent.
ruling on that, is usually a year's worth of rent paid to the
Crazy.
tenant.
And they probably didn't even, at that point, they still haven't been kicked out. So they're,
Yeah.
because I've heard situations where they get kicked out and they find out after, and it's like, okay, sure, now we're out of the house,
Yeah.
but we get this amount. But now it's like they're still in your house.
Yeah,
So
So they've kind of unfortunately
mess
gone about
around.
it. They're all the wrong ways.
Yeah. And there's both scenarios, right? You can be
Yeah.
problem tenant, problem landlord. They
Yeah,
both kind of.
yeah. So they're like slumlords is what they would call a terrible landlord.
Oh, okay.
Right? That's why dealing with a property manager, depending on who you deal with, is usually a little bit smoother, right? Because they understand both sides, and they're a neutral party. I mean, they're hired by the landlord, but they're there to keep everything kind of by the book, right?
Yeah, it's a degree of separation you need to chill out
Yeah.
emotions.
Exactly.
It's
And as a landlord, they're your buffer, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes dealing with tenants can be a little tough. They depending on the tenant, they can think that everything they ask for needs to be done the next day or that hour, right? And then you need to explain to them that like, no, this there's a reasonable amount of time, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then kind of diffuse the situation. But if it was like, if you're dealing with landlord to tenant, and as a landlord maybe you get a little bit heated sometimes.
Yeah.
That can go sideways.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. Well, we're kind of getting close on time,
Oh damn.
so I think it's lunchtime.
Cool.
So today we brought another local brunch spot. You've seen this drink. It's kind of melted the ice a little bit. But we're going to get into these drinks, and we're going to get into some food quick. So I'm going to run and grab that. But while I do that, maybe tell people where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me online. Google Cervantage Property Management on Instagram, Facebook. Basically, Instagram, Facebook.
Today got some brunch, I guess, some lunch from Delphi's in Langley. This is located by Staples, across the street from Staples. What else is there? Escape Room, the Cave. Or Escape Room's gone now.
Sushi California.
F45 Gym, Delphi's. I've been there before. So good. It's like a brunch spot. I went there at 11 today. It was packed, so definitely go early. Got a Philly cheese steak sandwich with some fries. Got slider hamburgers with the super baked cheese, and I think there's bacon on there, as well as these beautiful potatoes. They're marbled potatoes, I think they're called. It's literally a potato that they squish and they throw on the grill. So these are definitely, a full potato. So let's get into this. Let's start with these ones. So grab one.
Okay.
Grab one of those and tell them what you taste. So good. Is there here, if you need some of those. So these have caramelized onion. You have cheddar cheese that's baked, grilled on there, and then it has thick cut bacon. I think there's mayo on there. I don't know if there's looks like there might be a mushroom in there as well. Honey mustard, really good. Let's dig into this one. Take the thing out because you'll stab yourself in the mouth.
All right.
So good. A little bit dry, but the flavors all come together nicely.
You got those caramelized onions.
Yeah, that helps with the. It's a thick patty for a slider.
Bacon's
I
good.
don't know if you can see that. Yeah, grab a potato. Now, when they cook the potatoes like this, I think they stay somewhat more tender. I don't know if they've seasoned them much, but it's pretty good. Okay, so and then I told them to cut this into like 4s, but they cut it into 2.
Oh yeah.
Which is gonna be fun.
Super
And-
tender.
Oh my god, this is a mess. Oh. Fries are.
What we got going on here?
So that's a chili Philly cheese steak. Has some green peppers, some Romano lettuce, and you got the cheese and the Philly.
Cheese
and the steak.
Louise.
Cheese Louise. I'm gonna rip this because I don't want to eat the whole thing. Oh fuck,
Dude, just take a bite.
man, this is annoying. So
Seems
I
just
mean,
falling apart.
I would eat this all. It's just I don't want to eat it all right now. But let's take a bite.
Oh my god.
The sauce is there. The sauce definitely helps that one out. The cheese, the mayo, keeps it super. I hate using this word, but moist. Keeps it pretty moist. You got the paper straws, saving the turtles. For these beautiful drinks, I forgot what these were. That's a matcha latte, and this is a lemonade, I think. You have an idea.
Some fun
I want
flavors.
you to taste both, though. So we're gonna share. But
Cool with me.
take your straw with you.
All right.
So, yeah, rush today because getting close on time. But this is a lemonade.
This is a
It's a matcha, yeah. That's good. That's has some sparkle in there. Definitely tastes like there's carbonation. It's cool because the color stays like this. It's been like this for the last hour. Hasn't diffused or anything.
This one's, it's good. I mean, it's not too sweet, milky, creamy.
Oh, sprinkled it all over your white shirt.
God.
It's creamy. Yeah, I saw this picture online and it looked like it wasn't the one I was looking at, but I mean, what's matcha? Is matcha's like a tea, like a green tea type thing, right? How would you explain matcha?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
It's like a latte. Matcha, it is a matcha latte. So it's probably milk. I don't know what it is. It's milk and kind of like a Indian tea, iced tea, I think, like a cha. Yeah, tastes like milk.
Tastes
Can't
like
explain that. Can't explain that.
It's good. It's not
The
sweet.
aftertaste though.
It's not too sweet or anything like
Yeah,
that.
no. It's refreshing. It's what is that? It kind of tastes pepperminty, isn't that? Or that's the matcha, I guess.
Oh,
You ever
matcha's
had
different flavors or anything like that. No, I've never had that before, but this is pretty good. You're right. It does have carbonation to it, but not too much.
That one would be nice with some vodka in there.
Yeah.
Some alcohol would be nice on that one. This one, I don't know if you'd probably put Bailey's in there, but this is good. This is a very breakfasty drink, right? That's more of a lunch drink. So we got both. We got both here because I think it's more of a brunch spot. You know, they have so many options there. They have sandwiches. They have the biggest thing there is eggs Benedict. So if you ever go there, go for the eggs Benedict. I didn't get it because you have to like cut it and you don't get the satisfaction of breaking the egg.
Yeah.
Because that's the only reason you get
yolk.
only reason you get the eggs Benedict. And they have what I got there was the chicken waffles eggs Benedict. So like chicken waffles. That's good. That's good already.
Yeah.
Right? Now you got sorry, I don't know if it's chicken waffles or eggs Benedict. I think it's just fried chicken, eggs Benedict. So it's like a piece of fried chicken with the eggs Benedict on there. Yeah. So you get the full cut. You cut it into it.
Hell,
and
man.
you get like the yolk.
Yeah.
Just waterfalling.
Yeah.
Over the chicken.
That place always looks super good, but it's crazy busy in there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was busy, but it wasn't like full. You know, there were still some spots. I went there at 11:30ish, right?
Yeah.
I think it opens at 11. So if you go there for an early lunch, obviously at 12 it's peak time. You probably have to wait. So try to get there early.
That's not a good business.
And it's just I don't know if it's family owned. It's not a chain or anything, but it's definitely a spot to check out.
Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess one question for you before we go is. No, I think we have to wrap it up. I'm looking at the time. I wish we had more time, but we'll have you on again.
Sure.
Talking about the rental rates and how they've fluctuated, because I'm sure they do. And we can talk about that and talk about more about the personal life of being a Langley resident, because we talked about a lot of rental stuff today. We didn't talk too much about Langley. You have kids, right?
Yep.
So I always like to talk about what there's things for kids to do here, because also my baby, I like to take her out and do things now. Before I was kind of like, didn't do much, work, home, maybe go out to the bar and stuff. Now it's like, I want to experience. Yeah. You're like, let me experience life a little bit, instead of just living for the weekend. So, with a kid that comes about. And, I want to talk about that in the next time you come on here. So, thanks so much for hopping on. Again, follow him on Instagram. I'm pushing him on TikTok. So, if you follow me on TikTok, follow him on TikTok. He's in some of those videos. And if you have any questions, about rentals, if you're a tenant, if you're a landlord, reach out to Service Property Management, especially if you're in Langley or Surrey.
Cervantage Property Management.
Cervantage. I've heard you say that so many times. Cervantage Property Management. So, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe down below. And then I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.